And it's the thing I find most tricky is when people don't recognize you particularly, but half recognize you, you know.
Rowan Atkinson once joked that the strangest thing about fame is being half recognized, the way people stare as if they almost know you but cannot place why. That uneasy feeling had followed him since childhood. Born on a quiet farm in County Durham, he grew up as the shy kid with a severe stutter and a face classmates mocked for looking alien. Teachers remembered a quiet boy with remarkable expressions, but a voice that frequently got trapped behind fear. Even Tony Blair, who attended the same school 2 years behind him, later admitted the bullying was vicious. What the world would one day celebrate as comedic genius began as a painful defense mechanism. Each insult pushed Rowan inward, shaping the intense observer he became. The lonely boy who hid in corners had no idea the very features that isolated him would transform into one of the most recognizable comedic identities on Earth. Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born January 6, 1955, the youngest of 4 brothers. Before he formed memories, tragedy struck when his eldest brother Paul died as a baby, leaving a quiet sadness over the home. Life on the family farm was strict and orderly, shaped by early mornings, heavy routines, and an expectation of discipline. Around age 5, Rowan's stutter erupted, turning even simple classroom answers into battles he rarely won. At Durham Chorister's School, children mocked his halting speech and unusual looks, branding him an outsider. Lunchtimes became solitary, the playground a minefield of whispers and snickers. Yet while he suffered, something important was forming beneath the hurt. Rowan began studying people the way others study textbooks, their movements, their timing, their expressions. This silent observation became the seed of a talent that would later let him command audiences worldwide, without saying a single word. Something extraordinary happened whenever Rowan stepped onto a stage. The stutter that crippled him vanished completely, as though someone flipped a hidden switch inside his mind. In school plays and tiny performances, the timid boy who struggled to greet classmates suddenly spoke with ease and controlled the room with precision. Portraying characters gave him emotional armor, letting him escape the judgment tied to his real identity. As someone else, he had power and fluency. As Rowan, he had hesitation and fear. This strange psychological split became the foundation of his career. He discovered that performance wasn't merely fun, it was survival. Each time he stepped off stage, the stutter returned, reminding him he was safest while hiding behind invented personas. He didn't yet know it, but this duality would someday fuel the creation of a nearly silent character who conquered global television. Academically, Rowan looked destined for a stable life far from show business. He excelled in science, earned top A-level marks, and entered Newcastle University to study electrical engineering. Professors saw intelligence, but not brilliance, describing him as quiet, methodical, and unremarkable at first glance. After graduating, he advanced to Oxford for a master's degree in control systems, immersing himself in equations, algorithms, and research that demanded intense concentration. Friends assumed he'd become an engineer or researcher, not an entertainer. Yet at night, he drifted toward Oxford's drama clubs and review groups, testing odd characters and precise physical routines. His engineering brain dissected comedy like machinery, analyzing timing the way others analyze circuits. The shift was subtle, but irreversible. A chance moment in a rehearsal room, watched by someone who recognized genius, would pull him off the predictable path forever. During one rehearsal at Oxford, Rowan lingered silently in a corner, while writer Richard Curtis watched him with mild curiosity. Rowan seemed shy, almost withdrawn, giving no hint of the performer hidden inside. Then he stepped forward to present a sketch involving a chaotic driver and another routine combining speech with precise mime. The transformation was explosive. Curtis later said it felt like witnessing a different species of comedian, someone whose timing, expression, and physical control were unmatched. That moment sparked a partnership that would shape British comedy for decades. Rowan brought surgical precision to every movement. Curtis supplied narrative instinct and emotional rhythm. Together they built sketches that felt unlike anything their peers produced. No one knew it yet, but the shy engineering student and the ambitious writer had just formed one of the most influential comedic duos in modern entertainment. Rowan pushed his early routines to the Edinburgh Fringe, performing in cramped rooms, sometimes even helping build stages before stepping into the spotlight. His nearly silent, hyperphysical style confused some audiences who walked out unsure what they'd witnessed. Others were stunned and sensed something rare. Back in London, the BBC offered him a radio series, The Atkinson People, a clever parody of fictional celebrities. It was ambitious, smart, and produced with unusual stereo techniques, but it landed in a dead time slot and gained almost no listeners. Although critics praised the writing and range of characters, Rowan felt the weight of repeated rejection. Casting directors didn't know what to do with him. Television doors stayed shut. At his lowest, he considered abandoning comedy altogether and returning to engineering. But an unexpected realization about his stutter would change everything and reignite his confidence. As auditions increased, Rowan's stutter became an unpredictable enemy. In interviews, it flared violently, stealing words right as he needed them most. Yet whenever he slid into a character, the stutter vanished. It was as if performance rewired his brain. Realizing this, he began to treat characters not just as roles, but as protective shields. Inside them, he was fluent, fearless, and expressive. As himself, he remained hesitant and anxious. This dual nature shaped his entire career. He poured obsessive detail into each persona, perfecting movements and crafting voices that allowed him complete control. The more audiences loved his characters, the more distant he felt from his own identity. But he also understood something vital. The industry didn't need Rowan Atkinson to be perfect. It needed the characters only he could bring to life. And one risky sketch show would soon prove that to the world. In 1979, the BBC gambled by giving Rowan a spot on a bold new series, Not the 9 O'Clock News. The launch was chaotic, delayed by elections and plagued by scheduling confusion. When the first episodes aired, critics were brutal. Some labeled the show offensive, incoherent, even dangerous. Ratings sank. Behind the scenes, tensions rose. Budgets were slashed. Writers clashed. Cast members were abruptly fired, leaving resentment that lasted years. But buried beneath the turmoil was a strange creative spark. Rowan's meticulous approach to movement and silence began shaping the tone of the series. Sketches that initially seemed messy slowly sharpened into something distinct. His physical precision became the backbone of the show's identity. Though still on the brink of cancellation, Not the 9 O'Clock News was evolving quickly. All it needed was one unforgettable sketch to flip the narrative and transform Rowan's career. The breakthrough arrived with a sketch about a pompous professor presenting his trained gorilla on a talk show. Mel Smith played the expert, while Rowan, hidden inside a heavy gorilla suit, sat calmly beside him. What began as a gentle parody exploded when the professor claimed he'd captured Gerald in the wild. Rowan snapped upright, delivering the now iconic line, "Wild? I was absolutely livid." The audience roared. Scientists jokingly adopted terms from the sketch. The show won major awards, including a BAFTA and recognition at the Montreux Festival. Suddenly, Not the 9 O'Clock News went from controversial experiment to cultural phenomenon. For Rowan, the moment was seismic. Industry insiders finally understood his brilliance, the fusion of silence, precision, and explosive timing. Gerald the Gorilla didn't just save the show. It launched the next phase of Rowan's career and cemented his place in modern comedy. Despite its success, the show's internal pressure reached unbearable levels. The writing process was frantic, deadlines unforgiving, and creative disagreements constant. Rowan's intense perfectionism clashed with the show's accelerating pace. Cast changes deepened the strain, and the production felt perpetually on the verge of collapse. Yet audiences adored the series, and awards poured in. That made the decision even more shocking. After only a few seasons, the cast collectively walked away. They were exhausted, drained, and unwilling to sacrifice their health for momentum. Pamela Stephenson departed for Hollywood. Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones launched their own show. Rowan, instead of resting, dove straight into a far riskier project. A medieval sitcom with massive sets and unpredictable weather awaited him. If it failed, it could end his rise. If it worked, it would redefine his legacy entirely. Rowan's next gamble was The Black Adder, a medieval comedy loaded with ambition and danger. The production was massive. Castles, horses, huge costumes, unpredictable weather, and a budget spiraling out of control. Shooting days were wrecked by rain. Scenes had to be rebuilt. The tone felt uncertain, drifting between satire and slapstick. Critics were unimpressed, calling it clever, but not consistently funny. Inside the BBC, executives prepared to cancel the show after its first season. The cast felt the pressure, and Rowan's perfectionism clashed with chaotic production demands. Yet beneath the mess was something promising, a unique voice waiting to be refined. The only thing that saved the series from extinction was an unexpected international award that convinced the network to give it one more chance. But to survive, Blackadder would need a complete transformation. The revival of Blackadder changed everything. Gone were the sprawling fields and drenched castle chutes. The new formula was simple: tight rooms, sharp dialogue, ruthless humor, and a character makeover. Ben Elton joined Richard Curtis, redefining the scripts with faster, nastier wit. Rowan's Edmund shifted from bumbling prince to razor-tongued mastermind, armed with acidic one-liners that became instantly quotable. Baldric transformed into the lovable fool audiences still adore today. Early reactions were mixed, with some loyal viewers resisting the tone shift. But slowly, momentum built. The chemistry was undeniable. Guest stars like Miranda Richardson and Tom Baker elevated episodes into classics. Rowan finally had the perfect balance of verbal precision and physical control. What began as a high-risk reboot quickly evolved into one of Britain's most iconic comedies, setting the stage for its most powerful chapter yet. The final evolution came with Blackadder Goes Forth, a sitcom set in the trenches of World War I. The idea sounded dangerous, mixing comedy with one of history's darkest periods. Yet, the writers crafted stories that balanced absurdity with heartbreaking truth. Rowan played Captain Blackadder, a weary officer trapped between idiotic commanding officers and the grim reality of war. Beside him were Hugh Laurie's cheerful Lieutenant George and Baldric's hopeful stupidity, forming a trio both hilarious and tragic. The humor exposed the senselessness of conflict without mocking its victims. The emotional weight built slowly, culminating in the legendary final scene where the soldiers charge into no man's land and dissolve into a field of poppies. Awards followed, cementing the show as a masterpiece. It revealed a side of Rowan audiences rarely saw: depth, restraint, and profound humanity. On January 1, 1990, a strange man in a tiny suit appeared on British television and changed Rowan's life forever. Mr. Bean, nearly silent and endlessly curious, walked into a world he barely understood. The character transcended language. Without dialogue, the comedy traveled across cultures, selling to more than 200 countries and drawing massive viewership everywhere it aired. One episode alone attracted 18 million UK viewers, an astonishing number for a minimalist comedy featuring no flashy effects, no grand plots, just timing, expression, and physical precision. Critics compared him to Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, praising his ability to communicate emotion without a single line. Mr. Bean became a global icon, recognizable in every corner of the world. But the fame that made Rowan a legend also planted the seeds of a demanding, exhausting future. Behind the cheerful chaos of Mr. Bean was a performer pushing himself to the edge. Rowan found the role physically brutal, requiring total control of every gesture and expression. Because Bean rarely spoke, every emotion had to be conveyed through movement, doubling the pressure. Rowan later admitted that playing the character filled him with stress rather than joy. He feared disappointing fans and felt trapped by the expectation to be flawless each time. When the first Bean movie shattered box office records, studios wanted more, piling even greater weight onto his shoulders. To the world, Bean looked effortless. To Rowan, he felt like a demanding alter ego he could never fully escape. The global laughter came at a personal cost, and the strain pushed him to search for a way to keep Bean alive without sacrificing his own well-being. Rowan eventually found a way to keep Mr. Bean alive without destroying himself. In 2002, he shifted the character into animation with Mr. Bean, the animated series. For the first time, Bean's physical chaos no longer depended on Rowan twisting his body into painful shapes. He only needed his voice, allowing him to preserve the character's spirit without the exhausting physical toll. Children embraced the cartoon instantly. Merchandising grew. The Bean brand surged into a new era, thriving without requiring Rowan to bruise himself for every laugh. A decade later, the London 2012 Olympics invited him to perform live in a comedic sequence set to Chariots of Fire. The segment exploded globally, becoming one of the most replayed moments of the night. But behind the laughter was a harsh truth. The routine drained him for weeks. It made Rowan confront something unavoidable. His body could no longer perform Bean's demanding slapstick indefinitely, and the character's future suddenly felt uncertain. Even while Bean dominated public perception, Rowan kept reinventing himself. In Four Weddings and a Funeral, he played a nervous priest whose disastrously fumbled wedding vows became a signature moment in the film. The tiny role proved he could win scenes with timing alone. That performance later evolved into Johnny English, a bumbling super spy born from a Barclaycard advert campaign. The first film became an international success, surprising critics and cementing him as a bankable movie star. Sequels followed, each balancing physical comedy with espionage parody. Then came one of his strangest career turns, voicing Zazu in The Lion King. Rowan admitted he disliked voice acting and nearly refused the role entirely. Yet the film exploded worldwide, becoming one of Disney's most successful creations. Again, the pattern repeated. Roles he doubted became milestones. But while audiences celebrated his versatility, Rowan was hiding a turbulent private life that threatened to overshadow everything he'd built. one of the most dramatic moments in Rowan's life never happened on a film set. In 2001, he and his family were flying over Kenya in a small private aircraft when the pilot abruptly lost consciousness mid-flight. There was no script, no director, no safety team, only real danger. Rowan climbed forward, grabbed the controls, and steadied the plane despite having no formal flight training. He held it level for minutes that felt like hours until the pilot regained consciousness and managed to land safely in Nairobi. The incident remained mostly private until the media uncovered it later, shocking fans who only knew him as the bumbling bean who couldn't navigate a door properly. In real life, he had remained unnervingly calm under pressure. It was a stark reminder that Rowan's true personality, quiet, analytical, steady, was far removed from his on-screen personas. But his next challenge wouldn't come from the sky. It would come from home. Rowan met makeup artist Sunetra Sastry during the Blackadder years and quickly fell in love. They married in 1990, had 2 children, and built a reputation as one of the quietest, most stable families in British entertainment. For decades, Rowan seemed immune to scandal, private, loyal, and grounded. But in 2014, the facade cracked. News broke that he had separated from Sunetra and begun a relationship with actress Louise Ford, nearly 30 years his junior. Tabloids erupted. Comedian James Acaster later revealed Louise had been his girlfriend before leaving him for Rowan, turning the situation into a public spectacle. The divorce finalized quickly, with Sunetra citing unreasonable behavior. For a man who had always kept his life hidden, this was devastating. Fans were shocked, critics were harsh, and Rowan's wholesome reputation crumbled overnight. But the most painful consequence wasn't public outrage. It was the effect the split had on his daughter. Lily Atkinson had grown up in the glow of her father's fame, performing alongside him and embracing the spotlight in her own way. But when Rowan's marriage collapsed and his relationship with Louise Ford became public, Lily distanced herself completely. She dropped the Atkinson surname and reintroduced herself as Lily Sastry, reclaiming her mother's name as an act of independence. She pursued cabaret, singing, and stage performances, refusing to rely on her father's legacy. Interviews and public hints suggested the divorce years were painful, filled with confusion and emotional strain. Fans noticed her absence from Rowan's life, and speculation grew. For a man who rarely shows vulnerability, watching his daughter step away from his name must have been deeply unsettling. Yet he stayed silent, offering no public explanation. The family fracture added a shadow to his legacy, reminding the world that behind his iconic characters was a man whose personal life was far messier than his performances ever revealed. Rowan had spent most of his life avoiding public speeches, terrified that his stutter might return under pressure. Yet, in 2012, he walked straight into the UK Parliament and delivered a bold 9-minute argument defending free expression. He criticized laws that criminalized insulting speech, warning that the word had become a weapon to silence jokes, criticism, and even clumsy mistakes. Civil liberties groups praised him, calling his speech a rare moment of courage from someone known for silence. Activists on the other side accused him of protecting harmful language under the shield of comedy. The debate grew fierce, but Rowan remained calm, deliberate, almost professorial. His argument ultimately helped change the law, removing insulting from the Public Order Act. For the first time, the world saw Rowan not as the bumbling bean or the sarcastic Blackadder, but as a thoughtful, principled man willing to risk backlash to defend something he believed in. It was a surprising transformation, from a shy boy mocked for speaking to a global star using his voice to change legislation. For decades, Rowan had been a champion of environmental responsibility. He bought hybrid cars long before they were mainstream and publicly supported electric vehicles. That's why his 2023 Guardian article hit like a bomb. Titled, "I Feel Duped," Rowan argued that EVs weren't as environmentally clean as people believed, claiming their production produced significantly higher emissions. Critics pounced instantly. Environmental scientists accused him of oversimplifying complex data, while commentators suggested his article played directly into the hands of fossil fuel lobbyists. Politicians even claimed his words slowed national EV adoption. Adding fuel to the controversy, tabloids highlighted his love for high-performance petrol supercars, exposing what many called hypocrisy. Rowan insisted he wasn't attacking progress. He simply believed the public had been misled. The backlash was enormous, unlike anything he had faced before. For a man who had built a career on universal laughter, the EV debate revealed the reality of modern fame. One opinion, one headline, one misinterpreted sentence can turn a beloved entertainer into a lightning rod overnight. In 2022, Rowan returned to his roots with Manvisby, a Netflix series built on pure physical chaos. The premise was simple: a house sitter battling a single bee. But the execution demanded the same precise timing and slapstick mastery that defined his early career. The twist was his age. Rowan was now in his late 60s, and every fall, crash, and frantic gesture carried a new kind of weight. He admitted that even basic stunts left him exhausted during previous projects, and Manvisby pushed him right back into that strenuous territory. Yet, despite the strain, viewers loved seeing him in this familiar form, as if witnessing a final salute to the genre he perfected. The show reminded audiences why he became a global icon, but it also reminded Rowan that time was catching up. Filming left him sore, winded, and reflective. The man who once powered entire episodes with frenetic energy now felt every bruise. Still, he delivered, proving he could outthink, outtime, and outperform a bee even at nearly 70. For years, fans joked that Mr. Bean wasn't human. His strange arrival beam in the opening credits, his awkward movements, his misunderstood social cues, everything hinted at something otherworldly. It was a silly theory, until one day it wasn't. The animated Mr. Bean series released an episode that showed multiple bean-like clones operating inside a spaceship, effectively confirming the long-suspected truth. Mr. Bean is, canonically, not from Earth. Even the Latin chant from the original series intro, loosely translated to "Behold the man who is a bean," suddenly took on deeper meaning. Rowan had hinted at this decades earlier, but the confirmation electrified fans. The bullied schoolboy once mocked as alien had, in a poetic twist, created a character who literally embodied the insult that once hurt him. The reveal became a celebration of Bean's oddity, turning his weirdness into mythology. And in a way, it explained everything: his logic, his expressions, his disconnect from human norms. The alien theory didn't just fit, it completed the character. By the time Rowan turned 70, his legacy was undeniable. 12 major awards, global influence, one of the most successful comedy characters ever created, and a YouTube empire gathering billions of views each year. Yet he remained deeply self-critical, unsure of his own success, forever the quiet engineer hiding behind masks. Mr. Bean continued dominating online platforms, earning millions monthly, but Rowan felt conflicted about returning to the role physically. He admitted that watching an older man act childlike could feel uncomfortable, even sad. Still, he also said he'd never say never. That hesitation captures the essence of Rowan Atkinson's story. A man shaped by childhood pain turned his insecurities into global laughter. A man terrified of speaking became a defender of free speech. A man mocked as an alien created one of the most beloved characters in history. And now, standing at the edge of his legacy, the final unanswered question remains. Will Rowan ever fully say goodbye to Mr. Bean, or is the alien still waiting for one more visit to Earth?